Hello everybody, Daz here, very happy to see all of you on the other side of the screen. Today I'm going to make a new tutorial about how to make a drain point for your water cooling system. This subject is very easy, but for whatever reason it makes a lot of people confused and scared, and they just cannot get how to do it, especially new builders. Even some people who build computers, they're still kind of confused, which is puzzling me because I think subject is extremely simple, but listen, I'll do my best and try to explain you how to do it. And we break this tutorial into three sections, which will help me to address the subject in the most efficient way. First question would be why we need a draining point, because that's actually not obvious for some guys. Second, where we put it, and lastly, is how we do it and what kind of parts we can use it, because it's different ways to, skin a cat. And I'll try to show you at least some of them. To demonstrate me, I will be using this mock-up build. You see it's not completed. I just use my Venom, which I decommissioned lately, and I use my motherboard, GPU, CPU, and radiator to assemble this system that based on Thermotech P3, which is open type of the case, but it helped me to have access to everything that I need and will help me to explain you everything much easier. But I will try to make references to other type of the towers and different ways how the parts can go in those components, different type of the cases, so maybe it will be more applicable and help you with your particular situation, because not everybody using this type of the computer. So, question number one that we discussed already. This is why we need a drain point. Well, the answer is simple. Maintenance or changes. So if we do maintenance, some liquid require change once a year, because liquid goes through all your radiator blocks, touching metal get dissolved, you like it or not. And that's make liquid conductive, because all these metal particles, even if liquid was non-conductive in the beginning, after a year of use it became quite a bit of conductive. Second, all these dissolving parts might affect your coloring, because let's say your copper radiator, it's oxidizing green, so all those green particles get washed out and your green start adding to your color, so orange can become brown and so on. So only green liquid probably doesn't really much change, because green on green make no difference. Or for example, you do upgrade. You have new GPU, I have 980 right there, let's say I bought 2080, so cool, I'm still fine with my motherboard, but I want new GPU. Again, I need to drain liquid, I need to take block out, put a new in, and fill it back. So you see, there's number of scenarios why you want to do it. And obviously, you don't want to have additional hassle with all the process, because there are actually ways to do it very easily and hassle-free. And I try to show you how. Now, other thing is people cannot really struggle a lot is where I put the draining point. And it's obvious, guys. It's the same like in your damn shower. You don't put your drain on the ceiling, you don't put it on the wall, you put it on the floor. It's the same situation here. So we're looking on your configuration, you see where the lowest part of your build, where is your lowest port of your build, because each component has in, has out, in, out, in, out, in, out. So you look where's your ports located and you try to find the lowest one. In my particular situation, I have this cross flow radiator, which has ports on opposite sides, so I have a in, out. Then I go through the motherboard block, through the CPU block, GPU block, and after that I go somewhere. This white probably looks better. I go to my reservoir and pump combo somewhere, and then I go back to my radiator. So if I, let's say, have a pump and my pump and reservoir combo in this position, they still higher than this port. So this part of my computer becomes the best place basically to drain my liquid. If I will start draining it from the pump, for example, then any liquid below the level, so this 1/4 of radiator will always have a water trap. If I start draining from my GPU, half of the reservoir will be full plus radiator. So you see, it's as simple as that. If, let's say, I put my pump and a reservoir combo in this position much lower, for whatever reason, then it could be that my pump and the reservoir combo will be the lowest point. Now, not everybody using cross flow, and this is example of radiator, which is a standard dual pass radiator, which has a port on one side, so nothing here, in and out here. So if we have radiator mounted like this, nothing changes. It is exactly as with cross flow. But if, let's say, I put a radiator like this and my port became on top of it, obviously it's maybe not the best place to make your draining point, and most likely my pump and reservoir combo became the lowest point and will be the best part to drain it. Also, I will have to have some liquid trapped in the radiator, but this you can do based on your configuration. Similar situation with towers. So tower, you typically either have a radiator on the front of your computer, and then it's no different than what I just showed you. And secondly, very common type of configuration when the radiator is sitting on the top and essentially it became one of the highest point of your build. For this particular situation, quite often that your best bet to drain liquid is right from your GPU. So you just use this port on additional port on GPU, you drain it. Especially when your, let's say, your pump and reservoir combo sit even higher. If I would put it in a low position like this, then they became still the best type of the place where you put your draining point out. So, next thing that we need to discuss. This could be a couple scenarios that you're facing. So sometimes you have a simple component like this dark side radiator. It has only two ports. One is port is in, other part is out. So in order to make a drain point out of it, you have to share the only port available with your standard loop that goes as usual, plus that appendix tube that you need to put out as a draining point. For that, you will require additional fitting. And this fitting usually called splitter or cross connect or Q fitting and things like this. So essentially, it's like a chunk of metal which has, instead of only two holes in it, held more than two. So this one, it has four, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me see, there's another one. You might have a Y fitting that just look like a letter Y, so you have one common port and two of those. So it's up to you what you would like to use. It doesn't really matter. That all you need to take care that you have a fitting that allows you to share one port and split your flow into two parts. One part would be your liquid coming from your, let's say, pump or whatever other component, so your regular stuff, just working as usual. And second port will be used only for draining exercise. In many cases, you might not even require the splitter fitting, and I explain you why. There's a number of radiators or other components on the market that might have additional ports already. So this is Watercolled UT60. You can see it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can use one of the ports for your regular loop, and you have a next port next to it for if you're draining. Right? You see, it's very easy. The same situation, let's say, with this EK radiator. So you have port on both sides. Maybe it's not the best type of configuration that, let's say, this is coming in and this is port your drain point on the other side. Maybe it's not convenient or it's already blocked by your motherboard tray. So maybe it works, maybe not. But when you have ports in different directions, it's a little bit easy and can be used. Also, with the graphical cards, you typically have ports like in and out accessible from both sides. So obviously I use this port, I don't use this, and for exit I don't use this, but I use that. So if my GPU is the lowest point, this is essentially the unused port instead of stop plug can have my drain point. So you see, it can be a situation when you have to share port and then you need a splitter, or situation when you have multiple ports, then you don't need to share anything, you just use whatever is available. So it depends what you get. Now, about what next you need to make this thing happen. So let's say we have our splitter, because there's no choice in my particular situation. Now the question is what we do with this hole. We don't want it gushing out, because it has to be plugged. And if we put a stop plug, it's cool, it works. But when we need to drain, and let's say we unscrew our stop plug, maybe it starts spitting water on, let's say if it's on GPU, like on your power supply, and so it's not convenient. So the right way to do it is actually use a piece of flexible tubing that you attach to your port, and that flexible tubing actually goes to your container or bucket where the liquid will be drained. Old days, you actually had this tube typically attached all the time, because we didn't have this type of open cases available at all. So we typically have a tower with a little window in the middle. So the chunk of computer was totally hidden. So there was nothing wrong with permanently attached this draining tube, chuckle it in somewhere, hide it, and when you need to do your maintenance, you just take a side panel out, pull your drain tube out, and you just drain it. For that type of configuration, it's still possible. It's rarely used lately, but I still would like to address it because it has a certain benefit over everything else. So for that, essentially on one side, the one that connected to your computer, you just have a regular soft tube fitting that you attach your tube permanently. But for other side, you have a special type of fitting that's called a stop plug. Stop plug, it's a barb, but instead of male connector that you typically screw it into components, it actually has female and stop plug coming with it. So what's happening is you put this side with this stop plug into a container. I already lost. You unscrew your stop plug and you drain it. When process is finished, you put stop plug in place and you close it. It can be a little bit messy because especially when you open the stop plug, your liquid starts gushing right in your hand. And as if it's colored, maybe not something you can like, but nevertheless, this is one way to do it. Why it's actually pretty cool type of draining provisioning is because it's constantly attached to your computer, and when you need to do something, you don't need to run around to look for other parts. It's usually required for situation when your draining tube is detached and stored somewhere else. So this is already in place, and when you need to do it, you just you do it. So, but reality is that now we have such a huge open cases or glass panels basically that replacing the side panels entirely, so you can see everything. And obviously have a piece of tube dangling on the bottom make a lot of people pissed, even if you use like black tubes that are not very visible. So people don't want it. And then you have to have a way to, first of all, to attach tube to your computer, and secondly, you make sure that tube is not attached to your computer, water is not coming through out. And for that you need some sort of fitting that can be turned on and off in terms of letting water going through or not. The most popular, which I personally most hate for myself, is a ball valve. That ball valve looks like this. So essentially it's this relatively big fitting with a handle, and in certain position it's open, but you turn it 90 degrees and it closes. So this one allows you to make configuration when you attach it to your component that intended for draining purposes, and it stays in closed position until you need to make your drain thing. When you need to drain process, you reach for your tubing that we already discussed. We screw it into the valve and just open up and let liquid out, close it up, detach the tube. Very simple. This is very, very popular. Second type of fitting, very similar, is a push valve. So ball valve is a handle that you open and close. Push valve has a kind of a portion, two parts, which one slide against other. In one position, it's closed. When you slide it in different position, it's open. So it's other type of the fitting. So some people like this, other people like that. I dislike both. Why? Because it's very bulky and looks funny, in my personal opinion. How I do it, my personal preference is to use a quick disconnects. So quick disconnects is typically two fittings that sold separately, sometimes together, but a lot of times it's separate. One called male, other called female. When they separate, they have a part that pushed by a spring and it's in a locked closed position, so it doesn't go. But when you put one into other, male part pushes on a spring, opens the hole, and it became totally open. When you need to disconnect, you just disconnect them, they lock themselves. So I like it because you essentially with a, let's say, valve situation, you need to screw that escape tube to the fitting. It's kind of annoys me personally. For this one, first of all, the male portion, I usually use male portions that I attach to my computer. It's smaller in many cases than a ball valve. Doesn't have a stupid handle, and it looks like this. So you touch, it's always there. You don't need to do anything. It's permanently closed. When you need to drain your system, you reach for your tubing, you just attach it, gone, right? So liquid out, very easy. Finish draining, disconnect it. Perfect. Easy peasy. That's why I like it. But for some reason, it's don't use a lot. So I see 90% people using this, and 5% using this, and another 5 using like other options, all right? So one additional option that recently appears, and I think it's worth mentioning because it might be interesting for some people. This is a new fitting that DazMode just released literally in January. And it's similar to quick disconnect, if you will, but it's very compact design. So it has this little thingies, which is maybe 15 millimeters big. So you can see comparing with the ball valve, it's less than half. So, and it has a like valve inside that can be pressed and open up. And you have a second part that comes with it. Then you screw on it, and at some point, it's in the end, it starts actually pushing. You screw it, and it simultaneously you push on the valve, and it's opened up. So not very big hole, but it's open up. And so essentially what you have, so you have a very small piece of fitting attached to your intended port that you're going to your disconnect, for example. It can be black too, right? So it can be here under your GPU, very small, not very unintrusive, instead of, let's say, push valve, right? So you have this thing dangling, the same with the ball valve. I think it looks terrible. It's much better, it looks this. So essentially the idea is exactly the same. You have this piece attached to your computer, and you have this other piece with a piece of tube that you screw on it when you need to drain. So that's a kind of interesting thing. So people who are looking for very discrete type of configurations, I think it's interesting type of solution. The only disadvantage for both ball valves and this one, and even for quick disconnect, that you need to store this draining tube somewhere, and typically you store it in a safe place, so to speak, and when you need to drain it, you just can't find it. So it's always happened to me. I don't know how about you guys, but every time I need to drain it, like I'm looking for this, my quick disconnect, this piece of tube, and like, where the hell I put it? Damn it! So you get stressed and everything. If you have a tube permanently attached to your computer, that it could never happen. So sometimes I'm thinking, oh my god, old days was much less stress than now. All right? So that's basically how you do your drain point. But it's not all. There's a couple tricks that I would like to tell you, because there can be a few situations. First of all, first trick that I would like to recommend, it's not always possible because it can be in conflict with your design choices. But this is how it can work. And let me demonstrate you. So essentially, this is how you design your system. For example, in my particular situation, so look how it does. So pump reservoir combo coming to my radiator, the water goes up, then it goes to this motherboard block, MOSFET block, that's horizontal, then it's cascading down nicely to horizontally mounted CPU block. From that, it goes to horizontally mounted GPU, and it's exit to my reservoir. So when I start draining, so essentially you see the whole thing get cascading very nicely and escape. So I basically get rid of all liquid without much trouble. But if for whatever reason, because of the design decisions, because I want certain looks, for example, let's say if I will go from my radiator instead of to my motherboard block, I go to GPU, and from GPU I go back to like whatever, CPU, whatever. So when I start draining, this pocket became trapped, and water is just stuck here. That doesn't go because it's in this kind of depression within your tube run. In order to get rid of it, so you will have to lean your computer and do all these tricks in order to help liquid out. So if you can, try to make nice cascading design to help you with draining process. If not, well, then you do all this leaning business when you need to drain it. Second, quite often you can see this situation that, let's say, we would like to drain our system and we use quick disconnect. So I found my tube, coming in, connected. I get like 100 milliliters out and it stopped. Like, what the hell? I did everything right. Just doesn't drain. The reason is because you have a complicated loop, and in order to water get out, you need some air come in, and it's a little bit hard for air to go against all this water flow into this port and bubble back. Sometimes it works, but in most cases it actually don't. So in order to let your liquid to get out easily, you have to help air get into your system. And this is where additional ports on part, such as reservoir or even your radiator with multi-ports, can be very helpful. Because what will happening is, let's say we have our reservoir pump combo, we have one port with our water in from GPU, and we have a second port that's available for filling and also for draining, actually, which is normally currently closed, but when we start draining and it goes out a little bit and it stops, all you need to do, you just unscrew this stop plug, water, air start coming in easily into my reservoir, and your liquid just goes out. 1 minute, you're done. And if you don't have this aid, good luck to do it. A lot of stress and things like this. So make sure that you don't forget to have a place or part of your loop that can open, that allow air come in and let your liquid flow out easily. Other than that, there are no special tricks. It's really easy. Find your lowest point, decide the type of connections you have, closing, opening type of connection you'd like to use. Make sure you have help with air coming in, and your draining process very easy. So stress-free, I would say. So anyways, guys, that's all for today. I hope you find this tutorial helpful. I'll see you soon with more videos.